to Accelerate OC, the only show focused on the people leading innovation in Orange County. Join our host, Kerry Ransom, in his conversations with the trendsetters, entrepreneurs, investors, and leaders here, because it's time to Accelerate OC.
Good morning. Welcome to Accelerate OC. I'm Kerry Ransom. Thanks always to our engineer Paul for making me and my guests sound so good. Today's episode is sponsored by my friend Scott Fox over at the Orange County Startup Council. It is the best online resource for all things startup here in Orange County. You can find great emerging Orange County companies, partners for your business, great events going on in the local area, and even people and talent to help you out. You can just go to ocstartups.org to learn more. I am happy to have Tom Baine with me today on Accelerate OC. He has been in the home building industry, which is one of the leading industries here in Orange County, and he's been in it for over 30 years here in Southern California, and I am sure he has seen a tremendous amount of change in that time frame, whether it's in the industry itself or certainly in this area in the last 30 years. I looked up before the show the population change that's happened over those 30 years, and we'll ask Tom if he knows how much change has happened here in Orange County over that time. Before we get to hear from him, though, let me tell you a little bit more about Tom. So he's currently the division president for Southern California for LANDSEA Homes, where he oversees all of their planning, development, and implementation of the communities that they establish here. And as I mentioned, he's been doing this for over 30 years in the home building industry, and a significant amount of that time he was with another prominent home builder here called Taylor Morrison Homes, and worked in several of their communities throughout Orange County and other parts of the region. LANDSEA is relatively new here to Orange County, though. They came here a couple years ago, and I believe their first project was the Lido Villas right in Lido Village down on the peninsula in Newport Beach. And that's near where I used to live, and I was just remarking to Tom off the air that they just did a remarkable job with a new set of townhomes that they built there, villas that they built there, and I think sold out very, very quickly. And it's one of the last coastal communities, I believe, that we have, and they repurposed what used to be an office building and some other properties that I remember from when I first moved there. They also are about to launch this year what they call their high-performance home program. So I'm going to ask him more about that today, as that sounds like a very innovative program. One of the hallmarks of Accelerate OC is trying to draw attention to those. Tom's also locally educated, graduating from both UC Irvine and Pepperdine. Tom, it's great to have you here on Accelerate OC today.
Thank you, Kerry. Glad to be here.
So let's get to the starting line. Tell us a bit about LANDSEA Homes and the new program that I referenced, the new high-performance home program that you're launching.
Okay, sure. As you stated, LANDSEA is a relatively new company. It's a national company. We're based in Newport Beach, our corporate office in Newport Beach. I work for the Southern California division, and our office is in Irvine. In North America, we have 4 divisions. We have a division in New York, which does business in Boston, New Jersey, New York City, and that's mainly a high-rise business right now. I think we're planning on going to more low-rise in the future, but it's currently high-rise. We have a division in Northern California and Southern California, and then just within the last year opened up a division in Arizona and had 2 recent home builder acquisitions in that market, and very quickly are becoming a pretty prominent player in that market. In Southern California, we have several projects in Orange County. Our main project is a master plan community called Iron Ridge in Lake Forest, where we have 5 different product lines. There's 2 attached products and 3 single-family detached products, and that's a little under 500 homes there. And then, as you mentioned, we have the project Lido Villas in Newport Beach, which was really had amazing success at that project from a architectural standpoint and recognition. We won a lot of awards in the industry there, but also commercially, we sold out really quickly from our we went to sale in March last year, and then we'll be closing out our last homes this month. So it was really a tremendous success there. And then we have a project in Simi Valley, and then one in Chatsworth that we just opened up models last week. and then we have two big new acquisitions in Ontario. There's a project. Our first project is called Shade Tree. It's 432 single-family lots. We're building models right now, which will open in March, middle of March. And then another property close by to that is 334 homes. Different product types are two attached, and single-family, high-density single-family cluster homes. So we'll get to the lower price points, which is great. And so those are our communities in Southern California. And then 2018, we had our first year of closings. We closed 100 homes. Last year, we closed 214, and then this year we're planning over 300, and then next year, well over 400. So we have tremendous growth in a short amount of time. Our office is in Irvine by the Spectrum. We have about 55 employees, and yeah, we're doing pretty well.
That's great. Well, thanks for the introduction there. So I will, openly admit that home building is not an industry that I have great experience in, other than being a homeowner and understanding some of the economics of it. But it certainly is something that Orange County has innovated on for a long time. I mean, there are a number of home builders that have either started here or developers that have led or taken national, like LANDSEA, from here. So what is it about this area in your mind that why has Orange County become such a place for entrepreneurial activity around home building development?
I'm not sure exactly, but I know this area. LA has always been a kind of trendsetter with fashion design, and Orange County has been one of the biggest production new home markets in the country. Mm-hmm. And so it's always been a very prominent place for home building. The architecture that comes out of here is amazing. We have an amazing group of architects all across the county. It's been forever where design trends start here and then spread across the country. So it starts here. I think a lot of the recent design trends have to do with having more dense products, because affordability is such an issue here in Southern California. Land is very expensive, and it's very difficult to buy a house. I mean, the average house in Orange County is probably $750,000. Most of the homes are over $1 million for it. So young people trying to buy their first home, they can't do it. I mean, they don't have the down payment. So it's really about trying to develop product that is attainable for them, where they could come up with the money for a down payment. So a lot of the most recent innovation regarding architecture is really around kind of still producing a really nice house in a smaller square footage, and then site plans where you can get 20 units per acre, whereas maybe a single family house 20 years ago might be 6 or 5 or 6 or 7 units per acre. So, but still maintaining a really good quality of life, where you have good amenities within a community, where you have amenities that people place value in, whether it's a pool or play structures or rec center. So it's just because of the economics here, there's been a lot of strong motivation to really get innovative to create these homes smaller and more attainable, but still provide the things that people really want in their homes, in their community.
Sure. So, I mean, I've been here for almost 20 years now. It's remarkable to even think back that it's been that long since I moved to California. It just, when I got here, it seemed like there was no land left. And yet, you're still talking about some of these fairly significant new build communities. I mean, how much room still is there without going dramatically east? Or do you see over the next decade, do you see an increasing trend of infill or repositioning like you did with the Newport villas?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, there's not a lot of land left in Orange County. There's basically the Irvine Company with the Irvine Ranch, and 5 Points has large area at the Great Park, and then there's Rancho Mission Company that still has quite a bit of homes and lots to develop out there, and so that's really it. Beyond that, it is a lot of the infill projects. So a lot of the projects that we've been doing lately are infill, and infill is great. It's a really great opportunity to turn some use that's not that productive anymore. A lot of them might be strip malls or an old school where the community is aged out and they don't have as many kids anymore, and turning that into homes, and typically the infill projects are the denser type product, and they're producing product that's the more attainable price point, and it's a really good option for people, because in a lot of those older communities, the floor plans and the houses are really outdated. The floor plans have changed a lot, where now typical to have a great room where you connect the family room, kitchen, and dining room, whereas before that was all very compartmentalized, and so now everybody wants a open floor plan. So we're able to build and provide a really good alternative to what's adjacent there. So infill is really a good way to go, and we really look for those opportunities.
Yeah, makes sense. How do you think about, let's go a little bit under the hood and go deeper there. How do you think about the need for better kind of public transit and other planning when it comes, as we see a likely infill trend coming here, if there is continued demand for housing and people to live here? How do you see that need for different forms of transportation to help accompany that? Because traffic, we are fortunate here on a relative basis that traffic's much easier here than it is in LA.
Right.
But I don't think anybody wants to move toward that and get any worse. So how do you guys think through those things in conjunction with cities or just overall?
Yeah, I think with public transportation, Orange County is very far behind a lot of other places. I think LA is, starting with their train system to, further develop that, but still it's way behind the bigger cities. Like we were talking about Chicago earlier. Chicago is great. You could get around very easily on the train. New York, same. And so I think in terms of public transportation, it's not something that we really think about in terms of the location. But what we would think about, though, is on these infill projects, is having them close to where there's shops and restaurants and businesses where people potentially could actually just walk to work, ride a bike to work. They could walk out their front door, go to the grocery store, go to a restaurant, and it's kind of more localized kind of walkability, and which creates a great lifestyle, and that's very people really want that these days. So I think that hopefully over time there becomes much better public transportation in Orange County, but right now all there is like the train. There's the Metro and Amtrak, which my wife and I like the train, so we enjoy going down to San Diego or LA, and it's really cool. But we don't do it for work. My dad for a while.
More novelty.
It's more kind of entertainment and fun. My dad for a while, he lives in Santa Ana and worked in downtown LA, but he would take the train on a daily basis. But I think within Orange County, I don't know really too many people that take public transportation.
Sure. Yeah, I think the more likely, if you think about the business that I've largely been in, which is software related businesses, you've seen a major shift to virtual work teams or people working out of co-working spaces. And so the potentially more likely outcome could be I live and play in my local neighborhood, and maybe I work as well by working from home. So you have some of these live work spaces that are emerging, or I work in a co-work or more virtualized way, and that's how I solve the transit problem, is just by not having to do transit.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think a lot of businesses are doing that more, where their employees are able to work from home. Both my kids are able to do that. They work in kind of creative marketing, do a lot of work on the computer, so they do that a lot, which I think is great, just to avoid like a 35 or 45 minute commute each way once or twice a week. And for some people, maybe they could do that full time. But yeah, I hear a lot about that, this kind of people working from home and not coming to an office. Our business, I like to have a way to implement that, with our business. Our business, though, takes a lot of like personal communication and coordination, and so We really have not gone that direction yet, but I see potential for doing that in the future. I think it'd be great. I think it just adds to people's quality of life just to have an extra hour and a half in the day to do something productive as opposed to sitting or spending that time on the freeway.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think the key will be trying as communities to try to figure out how do we capture that time, to your point, for productive use, whether that is volunteering or solving key problems in the community or building the relationships in those local communities. Again, having come from a small town, I've seen very clearly what it means to have this very tight-knit community. And I think partly in California at times you feel like people just, they live somewhere and they work, and that third leg maybe is missing. And I think there's a lot of studies showing how lonely people are, and just working from home may not actually help with that. But if you have that time available, how do you help harness that and give people some ability to connect in a deeper way in those communities where they live?
Yeah, I think what I've heard from a few friends that actually do work from home is that I think the drawback is that they don't feel connected to the people at their work, so they actually like to kind of go in and meet with people and see people face to face. So I think it's not. So in my mind, the kind of the right mix would be able to do that maybe a couple days a week, and then kind of get the best of both worlds, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. So one of the reasons I started this show, Tom, was to try to highlight amazing innovators here in Orange County. And I think what has really been a pleasant surprise for me is I know a lot of people doing things in areas like software and the world that I've spent most of my career in. But what I've been pleasantly surprised to find is that people are in this community innovating in virtually every area. And as we were talking about before the show, home building is an area that Orange County has really led in. You mentioned a lot of the architectural and space use and design trends that have started here and spread across the country. As you look out over the next decade, what do you see really happening, here in Orange County or really nationally from a home building standpoint that you think will continue to push the envelope on innovation?
Yeah, I think it, especially in Orange County, kind of like what we already talked about, but I think it really comes down to the economics of getting people into a home. So I think it's really going to center a lot around being able to produce affordable or attainable homes. So it's going to continue to develop product where you could, because the land's so expensive, you have to, you really need dense product to maximize the yield on each project. So it's going to be about how you create a home with smaller square footage that is really desirable and functional for the people that live there, and also creating outdoor space, because everybody wants some private outdoor space. And so some of the things that would happen recently or over the last probably 8 or 10 years is like the rooftop decks, because like some of these 3-story product, there's really not any room down on the first floor because it's some common area landscaping and buildings, but the rooftop deck kind of becomes their entertaining and outdoor area, which is kind of a great solution. And that's, for builders, that was kind of scary. I mean, there was kind of a rule of thumb for a lot of years where you never have any decks over living areas because the decks leak. But so a lot of the innovation, I know home building is not really known for innovation or changing things quickly over years. Everybody thinks we do things the same way we did forever, but I think it's really not true. I mean, in terms of the construction techniques and the quality of materials and the quality of the homes and energy efficiency of homes right now, it's way better than I started 30 years ago. We used to have a terrible problem with rain leaks. Now we don't. I mean, everything you can imagine is much better today. And it doesn't happen really quickly. It just kind of evolves over time. But so I think there will be a lot of those sort of subtle changes that will improve home building. But I think one big thing we have to solve is being able to produce homes that are affordable, that gets these young kids out of college or in their 30s, once they get established with the job, get them into a home so they could have a home they could call their own.
How do you think about, Orange County, from a social structure standpoint, is relatively conservative, but how do you think about things like co-living or, I'm sitting here envisioning that are we going to, in your mind, are we going to here experiment with scenarios where maybe you end up creating a centralized commercial kitchen that multiple people can share, and you start to see more co-living type arrangements of people to allow them, to your point, to establish some sense of roots earlier. Maybe I'd go from 22 right out of college to having a fractional ownership in co-living with a whole bunch of people in this somewhat communal structure. Like, do you see any of that here, or do you think that is likely to start in other places?
No, I definitely see that here. I mean, we haven't at LANDSEA started to think about a project where we would do that, but it's definitely talked about kind of industry-wide, and I think it would actually start here just because of the affordability issue here. It's definitely going to start in a place where people can't, buy a home on their own. So yeah, I think I think kids these days would be totally up for that, and I think after they get tired of paying rent and the landlord raising rent, that they'd want to kind of take things under their own control and do that. And I think a big key to owning a home and owning real estate is just getting into the market. I remember when I was in late 20s when we first bought our first townhome. Like before that, like there's a couple years before that, it's like I was thinking, geez, I'm never going to be able to buy a home here. And back then, I think the homes were probably like 250 or 300,000, which sounds awesome today. But I was thinking, geez, I don't know how am I ever going to do this. And then was thinking, maybe we got to move somewhere else. But anyway, kind of stuck with it. Bought a townhome for $145,000 and got in and built a little equity and then kind of moved up from there. And so. I think that sort of co-living and just getting into the market allows young folks to put their money and build some equity and pay down the principal and it will give them a start, because it's really, because rents are so high, I think it's just really hard to save money nowadays. If you're spending $2,500 or $3,000 a month for rent, that's a lot. And I think actually if you had a down payment you can buy a house, I think in a lot of cases the cost a year, the net cost after the tax benefits of owning a home would be the same or cheaper than actually renting. So it's the really the hard part is getting in. So I think those will be definitely a product that will be viable in this market.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense. I remember my grandfather early in my life teaching me that the difference between a renter and an owner was that down payment, and otherwise that things should equalize about the same, and it was more of a utility of needing a place over your head, but owning it, you're sort of paying yourself. So yeah, I think that mindset, and it's funny because I think that's also a mindset that we're trying to drive a little bit more of in the tech startup community here, where when you have more people in a company that have a nice ownership position and that company has a great success, sometimes that is where the down payment can come from. That's or that can be the seed money for the next startup, where once you have a little bit of a base to work from, so that I think that ownership mindset, whether it's owning a home, owning a piece of a business, those are things that are really productive for a community as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Just getting that started and building that little amount of money will definitely be what you need for the next step. And definitely, I agree.
So let's take a little bit of a turn. So there's been a lot of criticism here for a long time about housing shortage. You mentioned affordability several times, but shortage of housing here in Orange County and Southern California. And then just recently, Jim Doty came out from Chapman and said that he sees a huge housing surplus coming, that I think he believes we're going to see an increasing out-migration from California, and maybe people have reached their breaking point or tipping point, that cost of living, cost of operating businesses, or taxation here are all driving people to consider leaving. How do you, as a home builder, where generally if you just keep building in attractive places like Southern California, you've been fine, how do you plan for what now may look like a much more uncertain future?
Yeah, I think it's true that definitely there's more people that actually currently are from California are moving out to other states, but I think the net population is actually. So I agree with Dr. Doty on that, and he's a much smarter guy than me, so I should probably agree with him on everything. However,
and he's generally been right on a lot of things, so
no,
he's got a good track record.
Yeah, I've gone to quite a few of his economic forecasts and really enjoy listening to him speak. And but there is a positive population increase in California just through kind of organically. There's more births and people passing away, but also there's he's not counting the migration from other countries coming in here. So I think that a lot of it really has to do with the job growth, and we've had positive job growth. It's been sort of mild. I think Orange County had about 15,000 new jobs last year, and I think it's projected to be about the same. So the job growth is not what it was a few years ago. But I think, right now I don't, at the event last night, John Burns was saying he thinks actually housing's in equilibrium in terms of the supply and demand, and that's sort of manifests itself through the fact that, prices really have been flat. So if there was a surplus of houses, then prices would go down quite a bit, and if there was a shortage, then they'd go quite up. But so that made sense to me. I think that we'll see. I don't. There's definitely a shortage of homes at the attainable price point. There may become a surplus, as the economy goes down, or if we encounter a recession, which it keeps getting pushed out. People keep saying it's like a year to 2 years away, but I think they've been saying that for a couple of years. But I think that if we do experience that, primarily at the upper price points, that there may be a surplus, and that prices will come down at that level of the market.
Yeah, it's fascinating because to some extent it is largely an economics question, but to your point, there are a lot of complicated factors like second homeowners, and a lot of people maybe leave this area and establish residency somewhere else, but keep their home here,
right?
So they have it to come back to, especially if they've owned it for a long time with Prop 13 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So as you think about Orange County, you talked about job growth. One of the things that's come up on this show a lot is we have continued to have a very healthy economy here, but I think a lot of the underlying evidence is showing that there are some cracks, and one of those is the types of jobs. A lot of the jobs that we have created in the last 10 years are not jobs that would enable somebody to afford a home here, probably under any circumstance, right? These are $60,000 a year jobs, not $100,000 or $260,000 a year jobs. So how do you think about the kind of jobs, and do you guys study that as you think about making determinations on what kind of product to build?
Yeah, we definitely look at the market and the average wages in certain areas, and at LANDSEA we prefer to build in the better locations, which typically are in Orange County and close to the job centers. So, and because generally people want to live in a nice area and close to their work, so to minimize the commute. So, a lot of the land that we're looking at is definitely in those areas.
Okay. So as you think about Orange County, look back the last 10 years, what are the, things have been good here, really good here for the last 10 years. As you look ahead, look backwards, but then also look ahead. What is it that you point to and go, okay, we feel good that we'll be able to build this and do just fine, that there's demand, and demand will be there for at least the next, because you probably have a few year time horizon when you're typically deciding to take on a new project.
Yeah, it definitely, from when you buy a project to where you're actually delivering your first house is usually a couple of years. So you have to look out several years. So we have to have lots and land supply 2 or 3, 4 years out in front of us. But, I just think about Orange County. I think Orange County, and I'm very biased, I think, because I grew up here my whole life, but as I mentioned earlier, after college, I played baseball a while. So that for 5 years, so I was able to live and travel across the country during that time, which I think there's a lot of great places across the country and great places to visit. But the one thing I always remember when we finally got back home is just you really kind of learn to appreciate what we have here. And I think a lot of it has to do with the weather. The weather is like as good as it gets, I think. Then you have the beaches and the mountains, and then you have every opportunity, anything you wanted to do, any sort of field I think you wanted to get into here, there's opportunity. And it's just a really amazing place to live. I think people are generally optimistic and happy here. And there's good reason why. There's not a lot really for us to complain about. So I think Orange County is always going to be very highly desired place to live, and I don't see that changing at all. It's been that way for a long time, and I think it will continue to be.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I feel very fortunate to have found Orange County and made it my home, and we've certainly committed to raising our family here and want to stay here for a long time. I think as I alluded to, some of the underlying data, sometimes give me a little bit of concern that we at least need to pay attention to making sure we're creating as much opportunity for as many people as possible. Because if it does just become a retirement type community, it just won't be as interesting. As it'll always be a great place to live.
Yeah.
I think it's to your point. It's just, are we firing on all cylinders given the great research institutions and ethnic diversity and all that we have here? And I think that's the question that we continue to try to explore. And a lot of the guests on the show, and we've talked a lot about, how do we try to reach more people to really get them to take some of that time. Maybe if you're not spending an hour and a half a day commuting, you can spend more time working on a new idea or exploring a breakthrough in different aspects of life. That I think we have the right pieces here to be a laboratory for change. And to your point, we've led the nation and the world in many cases in trends, whether it's building trends or fashion trends or others. And I think we have the right mix of everything here to continue to do that. We just need to activate more people to get excited to be part of that. And hopefully places like this can draw attention to those really interesting ideas or innovations as they come about.
Yeah, I think it's toughest really for the young people just coming out of college and working, and then also for the older people that are retiring, because I think for the younger people, again, it's just really expensive place before you get establishing a career and are making decent money. It's really, so a lot of kids are staying with their parents till they're 25 or 26 or even longer, and until they make enough money where they could get a couple roommates and move out, and then have people I know that have retired, and a lot of them moved to Idaho or Montana or up to Utah or out to Arizona just because they could sell their house here, so and pull out quite a bit of money, and that money goes a lot further in those other locations. They can retire more comfortably. I personally have a strong desire to be able to stay here, so that's why I work hard every day, because I want to be able to retire. But you can't take that for granted. It is expensive, and it takes a lot of money. So, but yeah, I think I think a lot of all we're talking about actually, really relates a lot back to the affordability of this area. That's a tough part. It is expensive. I think it's definitely less expensive than LA. Like, I've been home shopping with my daughter, and you can't really get a house under $1 million in a neighborhood that you would even think about having your grandkids be in. So actually Orange County is definitely much better value than LA, but still it's still pricey.
Sure. Well, and that's where I've alluded to. I think it comes down to jobs. The best way to solve affordability is to have and produce the kinds of jobs that enable things to be affordable. Some of it's supply, increase in supply sometimes will help, but it's, I think creating the right kinds of jobs ultimately should be the focus area to enable people to have a job that allows them to have a living existence, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. And on your statement, I mean, from what I was listening to you last night, which I think is, the 15,000 new jobs, probably 30% are of the higher paying jobs that people can afford actually to buy a house.
So you've been in the home building industry for quite a while, Tom. How do you keep just, for your own personal innovation and learning, how do you keep yourself sharp and relevant in an industry that is changing all the time?
Yeah, I work with a lot of motivated and hardworking people at LANDSEA, so both in our division and then at the corporate office. So, I spent a lot of time talking to them, listening to them, and learning from them. So a lot of it's just interacting with our internal team and also, within the industry, what we produce, our products you just go out and see it, right? It's not something that's behind doors. When somebody opens a product, they have models that are open. You go see their community. So I think it's, it's always been good for me to go out and see what other people are doing and see how we compare and see what they're doing better than we are and trying to learn from that. So there's a lot of opportunity to do that.
Yeah, competition is usually a good thing from, keeping us sharp and focused and hungry.
Yeah, and there's a lot of definitely strong competition in Southern California and Orange County in particular. It's all the biggest builders it's one of the biggest markets in the country. All the biggest builders are here, and there's been a lot of builders that have been here a long time that are very good and very talented. And so the talent pool for on the home builder front in Orange County is very strong. And so if there's something new or innovative or creative, it's likely to happen here.
Well, Tom, I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm getting the time sign over here from Paul, so we're going to have to go to our final lap here at Accelerate OC today. So one of the things I always ask my guests is to share that, a piece of wisdom or advice or a key lesson that they've learned along the way that they want to share with my listeners. So what sort of parting words would you love to leave with the listeners today?
Well, one thing I've sort of learned and enjoyed recently with LANDSEA is that we have a really diverse team over there. So we have a lot of young people, like in their 20s, that are very smart and ambitious, and have a strong desire to learn. And then we have a good group of experienced people, and so I think that mix of diversity has been great for sharing ideas. And there's a lot of banter back and forth. I think the young people think they're smarter than the older people and vice versa and stuff, but it's been a lot of fun. But also, too, it's been great for sharing ideas and really coming up with the best solutions to help our business move forward in a positive way.
That's great. I think that trend of, I'll call it 360 type of communication, or, I often say, ideas can come from anywhere. And so, the best leaders are the ones that are willing and capable of humbling themselves enough to listen to people from every angle. So it sounds like you absolutely subscribe to that as well.
Absolutely.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for joining me today on Accelerate OC and taking us along on a ride, sharing more about the home building industry, which I think will be an area that I will need to revisit, as it is such a core part. Real estate is such a core part of the economy here in Orange County, and I think is a place where we can continue to lead the nation and the world in innovation. And, I'm hopeful that we can even start to establish more what I'll call property tech, colliding my industry of software with yours of home building and real estate. And, thank you for also housing so many of the people here in Orange County with all the different communities that you've been a part of over the years. Wish you all the best with your new initiatives with LANDSEA, and just want you to know, you're definitely doing your part to accelerate OC.
Thank you very much, Gary. Really appreciate it.
You've just listened to Accelerate OC. Join our live recordings every Tuesday morning at accelerateoc.com, or listen, like, and share anytime from your favorite podcast spot. Let's accelerate OC together.